You wake up one morning as the most hated actor in Hollywood. Millions of people think you can't act. They call you a joke. A pretty face with no talent. And the movie that made you famous? The one that earned billions? You despise it. You want to burn every poster. Erase every memory. But here's the problem. You're contractually locked in for 4 more years. 4 more years of playing a character you hate in a franchise you never believed in while the entire world watches you suffer. Most actors would break. Most would disappear. But Robert Pattinson did something different. He started a secret rebellion. And what he did next didn't just save his career. It completely reinvented what it means to be a movie star in the 21st century. Robert Pattinson walks onto the set of Twilight. He's 22 years old, relatively unknown, and he's just been cast as Edward Cullen, a vampire who sparkles in sunlight. The script is based on a best-selling young adult novel, but Pattinson reads it and immediately has doubts. In interviews years later, he'd admit he thought Edward was essentially a 108-year-old man creeping on a teenage girl. He found the character unsettling, controlling. He didn't understand the appeal. But he took the job anyway because, well, he was a struggling actor and this was a major studio film. Then Twilight explodes. Not just succeeds, explodes. It makes over $390 million worldwide. Teenage girls scream at the mere mention of his name. His face is on every magazine, every talk show, every billboard. Overnight, Robert Pattinson becomes one of the most famous people on the planet. And he's absolutely miserable. Here's what most people don't know. While filming the Twilight sequels, Pattinson started doing something unusual. Between shooting schedules, during breaks, whenever he had free time, he'd fly to different countries and shoot tiny independent films that paid him almost nothing. Films nobody had heard of. Films that would barely get released. His agents told him to stop. His management said it was career suicide. Why would the star of a billion-dollar franchise waste time on movies that would make no money and reach no audience? But Pattinson didn't care. He was building an escape plan. New Moon comes out. Makes $709 million. Pattinson is now locked into the franchise until 3 more years of Edward Cullen. 3 more years of being dismissed as a teen heartthrob who got lucky. But in the shadows, he's working with directors nobody in mainstream Hollywood respects yet. He shoots a surreal drama called How to Be, where he plays a young man having a quarter-life crisis. It makes no money. Barely anyone sees it. Then he does Remember Me, a romantic drama that gets mixed reviews. Critics start saying he can't act outside of Twilight. The escape plan isn't working. Eclipse releases. Another massive hit. But something shifts. Pattinson stops pretending to like Twilight in interviews. He starts openly mocking Edward Cullen. On press tours, when journalists ask him about the character, he calls Edward a weirdo. He jokes that Edward's behavior is borderline stalking. The studio is furious. His co-stars are confused. Fans feel betrayed. But Pattinson has made a calculation. He realizes that the more he distances himself from Edward, the more people might eventually see him as someone separate from the role. It's a massive risk. He could alienate the very fan base that made him famous. But he takes it anyway. Breaking Dawn Part 1. Pattinson is now one of the highest paid actors in the world, but he's using that money to fund his real education. He starts seeking out directors who scare him. Directors whose work he doesn't fully understand. He meets David Cronenberg, the legendary filmmaker behind body horror classics. Cronenberg is known for disturbing, challenging films that make audiences uncomfortable. He's making a movie called Cosmopolis, about a billionaire riding in a limousine while society collapses around him. The script is dense, philosophical, almost impossible to follow. Pattinson reads it and doesn't understand half of it. Perfect. He takes the role. Breaking Dawn Part 2. The final Twilight movie. It makes $829 million. The franchise has earned over $3.3 billion total. Pattinson walks away from the premiere and essentially vanishes from mainstream Hollywood. And here's where it gets interesting, he doesn't go do another big studio movie. He doesn't take the obvious path of doing action films or rom-coms to capitalize on his fame. Instead, Cosmopolis comes out. Critics are divided. Some call it brilliant. Others call it unwatchable. Box office? Makes $8 million. By Hollywood math, it's a disaster. But something unexpected happens. Film critics start taking Pattinson seriously. For the first time they're writing about his performance. Not his hair, not his abs, not his relationship with Kristen Stewart. His actual acting. Pattinson doesn't slow down. He immediately signs onto another risky project. The Rover, an Australian dystopian thriller where he plays a mentally challenged drifter. The director warns him it'll be brutal. They're shooting in the desert. The conditions will be miserable. The character requires him to look dirty, wounded, pathetic. Everything about it is the opposite of Edward Cullen's polished vampire aesthetic. Pattinson says yes within hours. The Rover releases at Cannes Film Festival. Pattinson is unrecognizable. Covered in dirt, teeth missing, accent completely transformed. Critics are stunned. This is the same guy from Twilight? The performance earns serious praise, but again the movie makes no money. Just $2.8 million. His agents are panicking. He's now done multiple films that bombed financially. By traditional Hollywood logic, his career should be over. Studios should have stopped calling. But Pattinson understands something they don't. He's not playing the short game, he's playing the long game. Every weird, risky choice is building credibility. Every financial failure is cementing his reputation as a serious actor who doesn't care about box office. Then he meets the Safdie brothers. Josh and Benny Safdie are indie filmmakers known for gritty, anxiety-inducing thrillers. They're developing a movie called Good Time, about a bank robber trying to save his brother during one catastrophic night in New York. They want Pattinson for the lead. When he reads the script, he's terrified. The character is manipulative, desperate, constantly lying and scheming. There's no heroism, no redemption arc. Just a bad person. Making worse decisions. It's the kind of role that could finally break through, or completely alienate whatever audience he has left. Pattinson takes it. Good Time premieres at Cannes. 6-minute standing ovation. Critics call it a revelation. Pattinson's performance is raw, electric, completely unpredictable. He's not playing a character, he's becoming one. The film doesn't make much money, only $3 million, but something shifts in Hollywood. Directors start calling. Not commercial directors offering superhero movies or franchises. Auteurs. Visionaries. Filmmakers who want actors willing to take risks. Then Christopher Nolan calls. Nolan, the director behind the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Interstellar. One of the most respected filmmakers alive. He's making a sci-fi thriller called Tenet, and he wants Pattinson. This is the moment every actor dreams of. Validation from a master. But Pattinson doesn't jump at it immediately. He asks to read the script. When he does, he admits in later interviews he doesn't fully understand it. Time inversion, entropy, reverse causality. It's deliberately confusing. But he trusts Nolan. He takes the role. Before Tenet releases, Pattinson makes another crucial choice. He signs on to star in The Lighthouse, a black-and-white psychological horror film from director Robert Eggers. Two men alone in a lighthouse, slowly losing their minds. The script is written in 19th-century dialect. The filming conditions are intentionally miserable, cold, wet, isolated. Pattinson and co-star Willem Dafoe spend weeks screaming at each other in the rain. It's the opposite of a commercial project. It's weird, experimental, potentially unwatchable. Pattinson loves it. The Lighthouse premieres. Critics go insane. Pattinson's performance is unhinged, committed, fearless. He's screaming Lovecraftian curses, fighting seagulls, descending into madness. It's one of the most daring performances of the year. The movie makes $18 million. Modest but enough. And now the transformation is complete. Robert Pattinson is no longer the guy from Twilight. He's a serious actor. An artist. Someone who chooses roles based on challenge, not paycheck. Then the announcement comes. 2019. Robert Pattinson has been cast as Batman. The internet explodes. Half the world is excited. The other half is furious. People create petitions to remove him from the role. They call him Sparkly Vampire Boy. They say he'll ruin the character. But here's what the critics miss. Pattinson has spent an entire decade preparing for this moment. He's worked with visionary directors. He's proven he can transform into anything. He's built credibility the hard way, one risky choice at a time. And director Matt Reeves chose him specifically because of that journey. The Batman releases. It makes $770 million worldwide. Critics praise Pattinson's dark, brooding, genuinely unsettling take on Bruce Wayne. He doesn't play Batman as a superhero. He plays him as a traumatized loner using violence to process grief. It's psychological, grounded, uncomfortable. Everything Pattinson learned from Cronenberg, the Safdies, Eggers, he channels it all into Batman. And suddenly, the same people who doubted him are calling it one of the best Batman performances ever. But here's the really brilliant part. Even after Batman succeeds, Pattinson doesn't change his strategy. He doesn't suddenly start chasing blockbusters. He immediately goes back to doing weird indie films. He's already signed on for projects with unknown directors, experimental scripts, roles that scare him. Because he learned the secret. The way to have a sustainable career isn't by chasing fame or money. It's by chasing growth. By constantly putting yourself in situations where you might fail. Where you don't have all the answers. Where the work itself is the reward, not the result. Think about what he actually did. He took the biggest franchise of his generation and used it as a stepping stone, not a destination. While the money was coming in, he invested it in his education. Working with masters, learning different techniques, building relationships with directors who valued craft over commerce. He endured years of criticism, mockery, and doubt. He watched projects he loved fail financially. He could have quit dozens of times. But he never optimized for short-term validation. He played a decade-long game that most actors don't have the patience or courage to play. And now look where he is. He's Batman, one of the most iconic characters in cinema history. But he's also still working with indie directors on passion projects. He's proven you don't have to choose between art and commerce. You can build a career that encompasses both, but only if you're willing to sacrifice easy wins for long-term credibility. The transformation of Robert Pattinson isn't just a career comeback story. It's a masterclass in strategic patience. In knowing that reputation is built through accumulation. Small, risky choices that compound over time until suddenly you're not the person you used to be. You're someone entirely new. Someone you built choice by choice, failure by failure, risk by risk. So what's the real lesson here? That fame is a tool, not a goal. That the roles you turn down matter as much as the roles you take. That being willing to be hated, misunderstood, and dismissed for years is sometimes the price of becoming undeniable. Pattinson could have taken the safe path. He could have done Twilight sequels forever, or jumped into generic action movies, or coasted on his looks and fame. Instead, he chose the hardest possible route. He chose to become a real actor. And in doing that, he didn't just change his career. He changed what's possible for anyone trapped in a role they've outgrown, in a life they didn't choose, wondering if it's too late to become someone different. It's never too late. But it does require courage. The courage to walk away from what's working. To fail in public. To trust that small, authentic choices will eventually compound into something undeniable. Robert Pattinson proved it. He went from the most mocked actor in Hollywood to one of the most respected. Not through luck. Not through connections. Through relentless, patient, strategic transformation. One weird indie film at a time.